All lined up.
Good morning, everyone. So great to see you all here for our winter course preview. It probably says it right here. I'm from West Virginia. I moved here from Iowa maybe like 8 years ago. So winter is still a little bit tricky for me to give up here. But definitely is going. My name is Jacob Yarrow. I'm the director of OLLI. I'm also the director of the Green Music Center. And part of trying to make this whole Sonoma State University thing go as part of the leadership team here. And I'm so thrilled to have such a wonderful crowd here for what I think promises to be a great solid set of classes here beginning at the end of January. Shout out to our friends on Zoom. Pick us up. Thank you for joining us on the internet as well. And big thanks to all of the instructors who are going to be sharing their brilliance with us today and throughout the term. And thank you to the OLLI board members who are here. I see many of you. Give us a wave if you're on the OLLI board. Yeah, there we go. Thank you so much. Yeah, give it up. And many of you will also volunteer to help us out. We have some great OLLI ambassadors, members of our curriculum committee. This is an organization that very much depends on volunteers, an organization that would like to depend more on volunteers, to have more and more people involved. I think the more we build this community, the more it benefits all of our programming and our sense of being together and connectedness to each other. So I appreciate you all being here, being part of all of that, and really look forward to seeing you as this term unfolds. Also want to say a big hello to the team at the Green Music Center. About a year ago, I became the OLLI director, and we started to incorporate a lot of the processes of how do we make this work in the Green Music Center processes. And I think that has been good for us. It's really expanded the team. Grace McGarry, of course, is still here. Get to hear from her. Get to hear from her some more later. But we've been able to add some supports in the form of Becky Kale. Yeah. And our marketing team, Andy Shepard and Jenna Ponce. And Alba is somewhere here. She's the board manager for the Green Music Center. We're in the back. She helps us to pay the bills and keep things going. Very important folks. Are there other Green Music Center folks here that I'm missing? Jen Silvera is here too. Also in the back. Jen Silvera is part of the marketing team too. So we've been trying to communicate more, let people know about what we're up to. And I think it's been really great to have a larger group of people contribute to the OLLI situation. I also want to give a big shout out to our student assistants who, as you know, are key to making all this go. And we have just added to the team. So there are 3 student assistants we're concerned with. Max is here. And Yasmin. And Anna. Where Anna has gotten to, but they're all here and be around, helping in your classrooms as well. We've been working, in addition to getting all of our courses together and getting all that going, on additional ways for us all to interact and we've always had sort of one-off events and different things going on with OLLI to get more and more of those going. We've been lucky to incorporate some Green Music Center activities with OLLI activities, which has been great. And one partnership I just wanted to let y'all know about is with the organization Poetry Out Loud, which is a statewide organization that does remarkable work of working. The part I know about, maybe broader than this, the part that I know about is extensive working with high school students to engage with poetry. One of the activities they do is sort of a poetry out loud competition. So they expose thousands of students to poetry and engage them around it. And then each high school, or many high schools in Sonoma County, have sort of a recitation competition. And they come together here in this room for the finals. February the 1st at 2 o'clock, we'll be right here. There are 9 high schools that have won the whole competition this year. There'll be 9 Sonoma County high schools participating. Each student recites 2 poems. And there's like a panel of judges that figures out who to send on to the state competition. And over the last 5 years, Sonoma County has been very successful in the states, including a winner a couple of years ago. So you're all invited to that. It's free, it's here, it's fun, it's remarkable, to just get a sense of what's up with high school kids, what they're doing. And it's a partnership also with Creative Sonoma. So we invite you there. We'll send out more information. You don't have to remember it, but it is here on that Sunday afternoon. I think that's my script. I was in New York City for the last 8 days, like I got back 14 hours ago. So I apologize if I'm not speaking in complete sentences. But so thrilled to have gotten back to see you all. I'm really grateful for your participation. We've had strong registrations to date, and we're looking forward to that continuing and seeing all of you many, many times throughout the rest of this year. And I think my next big move is to say, please welcome to the stage, Grace O'Gary.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to get started soon. We have 9 upcoming classes. 8 of them will be high flex. Most of them are happening in this building. Details on registration here. We have a little bit of a new way to do registration, and expect you can that. Please do, if you would like to register today, we have a registration workshop happening down the hall. And we have professional people there that will walk you through the best way to register if you are having trouble. Oh, and I'm just going to say to the instructors, we have some Zoom folks that are saying, please talk directly into the mic so they can hear it a little better.
Hi, all. It's great to see many familiar faces and a lot of new faces here. So as some of you may know, we changed the registration process last summer, and those who were here taking classes in the fall may be familiar with it now, but for those who are new to it, I just wanted to give a quick orientation. So online, you can register if you go to the OLLI website. There are links and information there. There's also detailed instructions on how to register online. And you can also call this number here. It's the University Box Office number located on the website and in the brochures. And in person, you can do so at the Student Center desk here. That's the building that's right over there on the first floor. And that's by appointment right now, but you can also register today in person right down the hall. We'll have our box office team here if you just like to register directly with them. Or as Grace said, we'll have a number of team members here to help us learn the online registration process. And with that, I'm ready for some instructor presentation.
So the first class here today is Paving the Road to Disaster, Vietnam before LBJ with Mick Chandler. And we do have Ruth is going to come up and introduce our instructor.
Wow, look at us, all in our places with bright, shiny faces.
Something.
Nick Chandler and myself have the same addiction. We are both totally addicted to the same type of dog, and these dogs are totally, irrevocably in charge of our lives. Nick Chandler has been a student of American and European history for nearly 60 years. His primary interests include the founding era, the Civil War, and America's role in the Cold War. He has also lectured on baseball history and is a member of the Society for American Baseball Research. He has lived in Sonoma County since 1960s, and his hobbies involve around sports, and guess what? Dogs.
Thank you for that introduction, Ruth. I appreciate it very much. The title of the course that I'll be teaching this term, it's a new course. It's one I've been thinking about since I was 18 years old, though, because I turned 18 the summer of 1965, which is when the war in Vietnam really amped up in a significant way. And I think most of us, when we think of Vietnam, we think that it was Lyndon Johnson's fault, that he was the one that took us into the quagmire that ultimately resulted in the disastrous loss of life and the decline of America's prestige abroad for several decades after the war. This course is not really about the war itself, though. And I want to make that clear. We go chronologically, we're going to go up to the spring of 1965, which was when Johnson really launched the invasion, if you will, of Southeast Asia, overwhelming the South Vietnamese participation in the war and made it an American war. We're not going to talk about that. Instead, the focus of this course is how 4 American presidents prior to Lyndon Johnson set the table for Johnson's decision for war. We're going to look at how, back as far as Franklin D. Roosevelt talked about Vietnam, we're going to delve into why Harry Truman became an ardent supporter of the French war of colonial war of reconquest in Vietnam, why President Eisenhower was such a fervent backer of the Saigon regime beginning in 1954 after the Geneva Accords were signed, creating that nation. And then we're going to look at John F. Kennedy's role, and we're going to pay particularly close attention to Kennedy's participation in the escalation of the war. Because I think a lot of us in our age group have a sort of romanticized version of John Kennedy, that he was somehow a closet peacenik who didn't really want to get us involved in such a mess in the jungles of South Vietnam. But in fact, he is largely responsible, I believe, and I think I can show this in this class, for how things unfolded under the Johnson administration. So this is really more of a class dealing with presidential decision-making. Why presidents decide on the course of action they do, often in spite of overwhelming evidence that their chosen policy is not going to work. And that's what makes this so fascinating for me. Kennedy was told by Charles de Gaulle, who had good reason to know what the score was in Southeast Asia, don't go in there. It's not going to work. The jungles of Asia will swallow your armies whole, he told John F. Kennedy in 1961. And yet Kennedy continued to push chips into the center of the table. We had other people. Douglas MacArthur told John F. Kennedy the same thing. It's not going to be successful. There's no way an American army can fight a guerrilla war in the jungle. We had prominent intellectuals like Walter Lippmann and George Kennan telling all 4 of our presidents, this is a really bad idea, don't do it. And yet they all escalated in varying degrees our level of participation in the war. So you're not going to be forced to watch Apocalypse Now or Deer Hunter or Platoon or any of those Vietnam movies. We're looking at the events that provide the backdrop to the war. So I hope that this will be a subject of interest to you. I think you'll find it to be somewhat perplexing that human beings can make odd decisions. They can decide on a course of action, even while having grave doubts that they're going to be successful in their endeavor. So with that, I'm going to sign off for now and turn it over to our next speaker. And Ruth, if you want to introduce our next speaker.
Yeah. Heidi Freakian received a PhD from SUNY at Buffalo after having been a Fulbright scholar in Italy. He lived and taught for several university programs in Florence. After coming to California, she taught both at SSU and Dominican University. As one of the longest professors for the OLLI program at SSU. She hopes to continue for many years to come. When not teaching for OLLI, she resides in a small French village in Provence.
Thank you, Ruth. And thank you, Mick, for limiting it to 5 minutes. I think that's the first time. Good morning, welcome to winter and to the everlasting Renaissance. It occurred to me because I've been reading a novel about undergraduates, that undergraduates would probably see everlasting Renaissance and think, oh my God, it's going to be a tedious class. It will never end. But that's not it at all. This is the everlasting Renaissance part 2. And I want to emphasize that you need not have taken part 1 to fully enjoy part 2. So what are we going to be looking at this year? And I'm already thinking about the everlasting Renaissance part 3. So anyway, the Renaissance was this wonderful phenomena, which I am very closely connected to, both in my heart and in my scholarship. And what began in Florence was an incredible cultural transformation. It was a time of economic prosperity. And it was a period, most of all, for our purposes, of phenomenal artistic innovation, experimentation, and extraordinarily beautiful paintings. Unfortunately, usually involved a mother and child, but that's okay too. What began in Florence eventually moved to other parts of the Italian peninsula, and a couple of years later finally moved up to the rest of Europe beyond the Alps. So what we'll be looking at this year, this semester or whatever, this winter, will be how the Renaissance moved into the various other city-states. We'll begin by looking at Rome and spend ample time looking at the Sistine Chapel, where many of the Florentine artists moved as Rome itself began to redefine itself and assert the idea of reassertion, really, of the papacy. The popes returned to the city of Rome after having been in exile in France. Lucky them. Not too far from actually the place where I live, and moved back and assumed control of the city of Rome. Well, how did they do that? They did it primarily through political manipulation, but also through the visual world. How did they convince the rest of the peninsula that Rome was now the new Rome? It was caput mundi. In other words, the head of the world. And they accomplished this by painting themselves. So what does the Renaissance in Rome look like? What did those Florentine artists bring to Rome to be able to create this remarkable propaganda machine? After we look at Rome, we'll move on to Venice. And here you can see one of the first, I hate to call it a landscape, but it's one of the first period. Can you see this with all the lights? Yeah, it's on top. Venice itself was a remarkable, very rich, very wealthy, very powerful maritime republic. It cast itself separately from the rest of the Italian peninsula. It still does today. Venetians have a particular dialect, and they see themselves, well, everybody sees themselves superior to everybody else. But Venice also liked to call itself the New Rome. But their tradition, their artistic tradition, is very different based on their overseas empire in the old Byzantine world. So we'll see how their idea of the Renaissance takes place. And then finally, we will look at the other small city-states of Italy. What are they? Well, Urbino comes to mind, which will eventually become part of the Papal States. But these are our small aristocratic courts. Oh my gosh, I'm almost done. So come and join us for the Everlasting Renaissance Part 2. Remember, you don't have to have taken Part 1 to fully enjoy this class. See you there.
I have to tell you a story about our next professor. We were on tour in Sicily, and it was one of these magnificent summer evenings, a full moon, and we're in this amphitheater. There's probably 800 or 1,000 people there. And Dr. Kenning had written on the edge of the program, the soldiers will march in from the left here. And then as we go on, the horses will gallop in from the right here. And it was a beautiful program, and we were enjoying it so much, and it was all over. We're walking out, and I turned to my husband and I said, have you noticed? There's no policeman here. The man in front of me turns around and says, lady, we don't need policemen. We have the mafia. They still have the mafia? Justin Kenning, PhD, University of Edinburgh. Scotland has enjoyed a career as an assistant professor of literature and history at universities in Tunisia, Japan, Italy, and the United States. Also, he has been professionally a biologist, actor, Army officer, Manhattan taxi driver, studied abroad, academic director, and a writer of many books. He divides each year between the San Francisco area, talks and lectures mostly on Mediterranean civilization, over 150 courses, over 25 different subjects. And in Sicily, where he leads history and myth-focused small group of tours. Dr. Kenning.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, creation myths. Before there was what? Well, some people say chaos. Some say undifferentiated land stretching to the horizon. Some say undifferentiated water stretching to the horizon. Some say an egg. Well, then what? Well, what does an egg do? An egg hatches. And you have the beginning. When an undifferentiated thing becomes differentiated, you have the beginning of matter. Well, an egg is a singularity, a single thing, and suddenly it becomes differentiated. Or unity becomes plurality. And sometimes, when you begin with undifferentiated unity, that is order, and thus it becomes disorder. And a singularity becoming a universe is order becoming disorder. Wait a minute, I thought chaos was coming to order. Now we're saying order goes into chaos. I don't know, I like the latter version better because looking around us, it seems more chaotic than orderly. But this idea of multiplicity out of singularity. Another way of looking at it is you've got atoms flying through the void in parallel lines, perfect order, and then one swerves. And you have a train wreck of chaos, and that is the beginning of things. Or you go back to the undifferentiated water. You have water as far as your eye can see. What changes? Land appears. And you make that land to signify that moment. You may build a pyramid. And on that point of land appearing out of the water, the sun strikes, the morning sun strikes it, and a phoenix lands as the beginning of light. And you have creation. Or you can have chaos, birthing goddesses, who then birth gods, who then births everything else. And you have a Greek version of how it all happened. Or you have a single God having an idea, a thought, a word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. God was the Word. What does that mean? An idea. Or if that's too esoteric for you, you can have a creator God, a geometer God, making things happen, constructing as a mathematician or an engineer might, or you can have a potter God, shaping clay and making the world happen. All these different versions of creation. Or you can have a sacrifice. Some primeval force is defeated and dismembered, and all those bloody dismembered parts become us, become the world. We have been very creative in creating creation myths. And every one is true, because all enduring myths are true. And I will further confuse things on Wednesday mornings. Thank you.
Emily Acosta Lewis is a professor of communication studies at Sonoma State University, where she teaches public relations, mass communication, and interdisciplinary first-year courses. She earned her PhD and MA from University of Wisconsin-Madison and a BA in public relations from San Diego State University. A first-generation college graduate, Emily is passionate about student success, experimental learning, and career readiness. She integrates high-impact practices into her teaching, such as service learning, learning communities, and real-world PR experience through the student-run agency Primitivo, where she serves as faculty advisor. Emily has been actively researching and presenting on and taking professional development courses focused on integrating artificial intelligence into the classroom to prepare students for the evolving demands of communication field. Committed to mentoring, she advises multiple student organizations, including Phi Delta Theta and Lambda Sigma Gamma. Off campus, she is a dedicated mom of 3, weightlifting and yoga enthusiast, a lover of matcha quirky TV shows.
And Emily couldn't make it last minute. She had something come up, but her good friend Kyle is going to present her course for her.
I could go on and on about how great Emily is. I've been working with Emily for the last couple of years in the AI and higher ed space, and she's been a really great colleague. She's what kind of also brought me to this community of folks. She helped organize It Matters talk series during the last election cycle, which really like inspired me to be here and present my course in a little bit too. But let's talk about her course a little bit. So Everyday AI, she really just wants to get AI into folks' hands, especially this community, to just get some introduction to some tools, learn and get your feet wet and playing around with some of these tools, and then really learn how they would work in your everyday life. A lot of the work that I've done with Emily has been, we just last week had a cohort of faculty, about 12 faculty. And a lot of these folks were in fields of education or other humanities who've been a little bit kind of more hesitant of bringing AI into the classroom. And so introducing the tool to them and having them realize the power of not only putting it into their students' hands in a really like ethical and empowering way, but also for themselves to better their own learning materials and to really kind of step up higher education to the next era that we go into. So in these 6 sessions, you're going to get to explore AI, your own comfortable pace. She'll be introducing various tools, and then really just kind of trying to find ways to integrate those tools into your everyday life. A lot of tools right now that you are probably using, technology you're using already has AI built in. So getting an understanding of how that works, how the AI tool is being used by those different technologies, and then how you can leverage that knowledge to make your life better. So each week, looking at these different examples, having a really nice environment where you can share what your experiences have been, and then building on those ideas as you explore these tools together. I think the last thing I'll just share, just again, working with Emily so regularly, is that she does a really great job at being able to tap into what your own interests are and what your own concerns might be, and being able to figure out together in a really collaborative way how to address those things and find great solutions and ways that you can build on those ideas into something that's greater. So I just wanted to share that she's an amazing instructor, and I hope that you, if you're interested in learning AI and kind of a really friendly, safe environment, that you'll take her course.
Next up, we have How to Take Back Our Democracy with Richard Hurt. And we have Warren Wiscombe to introduce our instructors.
Everyone, we have for our class how to take back our democracy. And I think that engages many of us. Richard Hertz has taught undergraduate and graduate political science and public administration courses at SSU and elsewhere for over 20 years. He has taught OLLI classes and been a guest lecturer. In addition to teaching, he's been a public opinion pollster for over 35 years for many news organizations, governmental bodies, non-governmental agencies, and a wide variety of businesses. So, Mr. Kurtz.
Well. Take back our democracy. That's a big plan.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put 2 words in the same sentence that you probably haven't heard in a long time: politics and optimism. You know, it's very easy to be very depressed about our political system today. And one thing we're not gonna really talk about a lot in this class is the current state of politics as far as parties or individuals or whatnot. You can, have that discussion anywhere. What we're really gonna talk about are more fundamental issues about why our democracy is failing right now. And I don't mind using the word failing in a university environment there because it's not functioning as the founders intended there. They were very much focused on creating checks and balances in our system, which have all but vanished in our system in the last few years. And it's been kind of a subtle thing there. All three branches have significant issues right now. The legislative branch has basically stopped functioning. And, they're just not doing anything and not making any effort to compromise or work things out. There used to be things like conservative Democrats and liberal Republicans. And that actually, in our county here, we had a Republican congressman for a long time. Republican state legislatures in Marin for a long time. And even though the area is very progressive in its politics here, managed to represent, a very diverse community very well, but they're not talking to each other anymore. They're just saying, we don't have to do anything. We don't even have to show up. And, one of the really, things that bug me about the government shutdown, Congress was paid for the shutdown. They got paid every single day that they didn't show up, which included months of things. And that's how bad things have become because we're so, as a society, disengaged from politics that we don't pay much attention to it. It's like, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. But that doesn't get us any nearer to solving the problems of why our political system is not functioning these days. There's only one real way for us to change things, and that's for people to get more involved in our democracy. And that's what this course is about. So I broke this down into 6 slides for the 6 days of our course there, and I'll run through them real quickly. And got my eye. Where's the orange flag lady? There she is. All right. So we'll go over this very, very quickly. But basically, just as an overview, this is all about things that individuals can do, because that's the only way that things are going to change. Is if it's not enough to say, okay, every 2 years, I'm going to spend 15 minutes before the election, look for little D's and R's next to the candidates. And that's my contribution to democracy. Sorry, that's not enough. If you were a bunch of teenagers taking a regular class, I'd say the same thing. But it's true, we need to get more involved. And so let's, we'll run through these quickly there. And we're not going to stick exactly to this, the whole schedule, but it's going to be a pretty good idea of how this is organized. Basically, right now, the introduction, this is will be the most depressing class, the first one. I don't know if any of you will come back for the second one. But we have to figure out what's going wrong before we fix it. We have government by special interest. There's no surprise to that or anything. I did do two ventures into government there. I was hired, I'm a Sonoma State graduate twice there, once in physics and master's degree in political science there. And I look at things kind of from more of a scientific background. Dr. Poland, the late former dean of natural sciences, had the unfortunate deal of when he stopped being dean, the first class he taught going back to physics was my quantum mechanics class. And I was such a good student, he asked me if I had a learning disability. And well, but decided to go into political science where there's no answers, just opinions. But you know the deal with money in politics, but you're going to learn about it in a lot more detail. And the problem, no matter how awful you think it is worse than these many. I'm not going to say this to depress you, but to get you to realize the extent of it and what can be done about it. And the bottom line on all this, even though I'm going to start a few depressing things to set the table, I am very optimistic that we will see political change on a scale that we cannot comprehend right now. And I can't give you a timetable, but I'll tell you the reasons why. Unlimited, often anonymous campaign contributions, thank you, United States Supreme Court. Decision saying that corporations are people and have First Amendment rights. Oh my God, are you kidding? Yeah, well, it's a great slide there, so, okay. We're gonna concentrate on this one. I think I can get through it. Unrestricted partisan warfare, you know about that. Unrepresentative and unproductive Congress. Congress looks nothing like the people it represents. Being much older, much whiter, much wealthier, much more male, and absolutely not represent. Half the country now is politically independent, and among younger people, it's more like 70%. What percent of the seats do they have in Congress? Less than 1%. But that's gonna change. And why is it gonna change? Because younger people are gonna make a difference there. Not so much when they're 18 or 19 there, but they don't believe in political parties. And that's what we've gotta just get off of. We need to be looking at other things. And one of the things you're really gonna learn in this class is how to follow the money in politics. There's a site called Open Secrets, if you want to, opensecrets.org. Want to cram a little before the class, take a look at that site. But we're going to talk about how partisanship and money can be overcome, and it's really through greater civic engagement by people. And there's a lot of different things that people can do, including more people running for office. This is the greatest time. I've been a pollster for over 40 years. I've never seen an electorate more primed for change. I'm going to talk about why it's going to happen. There. Hope to see a lot of you there. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is the historical route of Trump.
Never is a lifelong resident of Santa Rosa and has been active in both the community for a half century, including being elected to the Santa Rosa Board of Education and the Santa Rosa City Council. We taught at Rancho Cotati High School, Santa Rosa Junior College, and Sonoma State University. It's over to you.
Like, Ollie is taking a turn to the dark side here. Gentleman who spoke first here, on the road to disaster, as I was listening to him, I think we could have used that title for my class. Different disaster, but nonetheless. The gentleman who just spoke here about taking back our democracy, maybe I'll answer the question, take it back from whom? Mega? Perhaps. This class is actually a project that I've been working on since 2016. When I watched Trump come down the escalator, thinking, well, he won't last long. And just like you, I gave him up for dead many times. He shot himself in the foot again. Only like a zombie, he endured. Why? What is it? Why does he have the appeal that he does when he said so many stupid things? Or caught lying. We'll look into that in some detail, but here's an article in the paper, in the magazine here. As we continue to sort through the wreckage of last week's election, one thing has become very clear. Donald Trump gained ground relative to 2020 in his reelection effort in almost every state and with almost every demographic group. Really? Even the most reliable Democratic constituencies, including racial minorities, shifted in his direction, an ominous sign that their coalition may not be as solid as they once thought. Whose coalition? Well, the Democratic coalition. 2024.
Yeah.
That's
it. That's it.
Trump said, but I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and I wouldn't lose any votes. Can you name any other politician that would make a stupid statement like that and have it accepted? It's either true, in which case it's alarming, or it's an illusion, in which case it's also alarming. But that's a bragging point. For those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. Think about that. The statement was made here in Waco, Texas. There's a hint there. What's Waco, Texas noted for?
The Ranch,
Waco, Texas.
the Ranch Davidians.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a hint. We'll trace that out in the class, the significance. Here's some numbers that I want to look at. 2016, Trump received almost 63 million votes. This is a man who never served in elective office before. Been married 3 times and committed adultery with all 3 of his wives, and has had a number of failed businesses, which is okay. That's the American way. You can fail and try again. That's not hold it against him. But he declared bankruptcy 6 times. 6 times. And he got elected. Now, we all know he came up 3 million votes short of Hillary, but you know, the way in which we elect a president put him in the White House. Well, the next election here, notice we go from 63 million to 74. That's after being impeached twice. Well, the second one was after the election. So he's really only been impeached once before the election of 2020, but he still got 12 million more votes. After we saw what he did the first time. But fortunately, Biden got 81 million votes. So Trump was removed from office. My dearly beloved spouse, who said to me, well, we won't see him again. He'll wander off to Mar-a-Lago and be retired. I wasn't so sure. Didn't take long before he's back in the news, just like the sitting president. In fact, he's actually manipulating legislation. When Biden has a bipartisan piece of legislation on the border control, he tells the Republicans in the office, in office, don't support it. Because I want it for a campaign issue. And we let him get away with that. So 2024, how much did he got? He got picked up another 3 million votes. This should be alarming. There's something deep that educated people such as yourselves living in a blue county in a blue state, thank you, dear, might be totally unaware of. It's out there. MAGA world is real, and we're going to go back to, say, the end of the Second World War and sort of trace the historical roots that give some explanation to why we're dealing with what we are today. Trump adds something unique to that it's him and his alone. It's a certain charisma that may not appeal to you, but it does appeal to 77 million other people. It's called audacity. Audacity. We'll try to take a look at that in greater detail.
Next up is writing our lives.
Follow is an educational technology expert. Here is Wednesday University He helps the faculty to integrate new tools and design inclusive and engaging learning experiences. The other background in mathematics and a passion for human-centered technology. He brings warmth and clarity to complex topics like AI. Professor Falbo creates welcoming spaces for discussion, discovery, and personal connection. Falbo. So I don't know how long ago many of you were introduced to AI, but being in the role of higher education, it landed in our laps right around finals week, back in 2022, early 2023. And I had a very, very like eye-opening experience the first time I started using this tool. You know, when you go through your graduate research and your dissertation or your thesis and you're painstakingly writing a sentence, like looking at every single sentence, just trying to get it right and being as condensed and concise as possible, communicate to your audience and all of those things, you're really thinking about language. And what I found was that I had this experience of looking at ChatGPT output in the same way that I hadn't thought about language in years, right? Sure, I think about language when I'm teaching statistics and I want my students to understand mathematics as a language, but this was the first time that I'm having this kind of interaction with a machine where I'm actively thinking about sentence structure and the way that this machine is just eloquently producing words, and it has only gotten better over time. When I was introduced to the OLLI community through the It Matters talk series in the last election cycle, I saw a really enthusiastic and really engaged group of folks that were interested in the technology, were interested in learning more about how to maybe even do some of the things that I was demonstrating in the talk. And I thought really hard about like, well, what is it that I would want to be able to do if I was, you know, interacting with these tools and wanting to learn more. And I thought maybe storytelling would be the right place. And so what we'll be doing over this kind of 3-week period is just demystifying AI, trying to figure out what it is, how it works, what it can and can't do. And then that will lead us into this process of, can we engage with the tool in a way for telling our stories, and what that experience of talking to, writing with a machine as a writing partner, what that's like. And then just kind of reflecting on what that means and what that means for us in the future if we do want to kind of continue that process of engaging. Maybe we want to have this turn into a novel or an actual memoir or maybe an audiobook where we have AI narrating the story using our own voice. Lots of places where we could explore in that space. So a lot of what it is that I'm hoping to share with you over the 3 weeks is an introduction to AI, an introduction to how it can be useful for you as a collaborative partner, how you can use it as your own assistant and many of the things that you might want to be doing, but really in terms of storytelling. I think there's a lot of value of being able to get to a place where you're trusting and be able to share those things with a writing partner that is not going to be judgmental, will always be there, that you can fire up at 3 a.m. and talk with. It's there. And then start exploring some questions about how does this thing, is it actually thinking when it's responding? Where are we seeing this thing already so that we can be like, the more you engage with it, the more aware you become about where it is existing already in all of these technologies that we're experiencing. And then can it help us with things like memory, cognition, things like that, which I believe it can. So we'll have this kind of structured around the idea of memoir writing, about storytelling, and that'll kind of be the common framework that we're using to explore AI and get deeper into what its capabilities are, and being able to share that with ourselves and with each other and others in our lives.
in the last session, we'll really kind of head down the rabbit hole of, okay, so what does this mean, right? Like I've just shared my stories, right? Like, do I own this? Is this my writing? Is this copyrightable? And some of the more details about, is this even still my voice, right? Have I lost some of my own humanity and offloading some of the cognitive load of the writing process to this machine? And we'll explore some of those philosophical concepts as well. And these are the questions that we'll just kind of sit with, maybe as if you're interested in taking the course is, can AI truly understand the weight of a human memory? What stories do we want preserved? Who decides that? And then how might our grandchildren experience our voice? Thank you.
We have art in Mexico, modern Israel, and the Vienna Succession.
Art history. Hello. Yes, our instructors taught art history courses at Sonoma State University in 2014. Has been a college instructor in Sonoma County since 2007. He was a specialist in European and American art in the 18th centuries. And has more recently developed a passion for teaching ancient European art. As a doctoral candidate, she studied post-war assemblage from California and its connections to American and British counterculture. She holds a Master of Philosophy degree in art history from the City University of New York, an MA degree in art history from Penn State, and a BA degree in comparative literature from Berkeley.
Hello, OLLI students. Sorry, I haven't done a large lecture kind of environment for a while. So I have small classes now. I also teach at Santa Rosa Junior College, so I know I've seen people around various campuses and so forth, and then certainly here at SSU. Let's see. We'll just leave it here. Okay. I'm going to be teaching this course on Art Nouveau, Modernismo, and Vienna Secession. And Art Nouveau was the first to sort of spring up at the end of the 19th century, around 1880. And we'll be covering the period between about 1880 and 1910, and looking at various types of art. So Art Nouveau is one of the artistic practices that brings together sort of an all-inclusive outlook on the arts. So we'll be studying architecture and painting. We'll be looking at paintings, tile work, mosaic. And as Art Nouveau spread across Europe, it took on some various sort of national characters. So basically, Modernismo is going to be specifically at Gaudí's works, pardon me, in Barcelona. And I'll also be looking at the Viennese form of Art Nouveau, which is more geometrically sort of organized in a way, very individualistic, and works by people like Klimt there. So let's go ahead. By the way, the class will be on Fridays. So if you spend the week doing other courses on politics and many other topics during the week, for some escapism on Fridays. Okay. So we'll be doing it on Fridays between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. All right. Yeah. So in our first class, what we'll be covering is some of the differences between Art Nouveau, Modernismo, and Vienna Secession. And we'll be doing some comparative slides and talk a little bit about what this style looked like in these different regions. What they have in common. I mentioned a second ago that Art Nouveau in general is an art form that incorporates a lot of different media, okay, so architecture and so forth. We'll be looking at different examples of that. We'll also look at the cultural context, which really brings in the reason why these artists wanted to incorporate so many different styles, okay? And this kind of idea of the unity of all our works working together is a part of what we'll cover in that first session. All right, then we'll move into a discussion of Art Nouveau in France and, pardon me, France and Belgium in particular. And this is a very famous site called Tassel House by Victor Horta. And it's a really important kind of beginning discussion of this entire style. Then we'll move into poster making in Paris in a little more detail. We'll look at Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, and this is one of his famous posters of Jane Unreal. So we'll talk a little bit about sort of the culture of Paris at this time. And those of you who've been to Paris before probably visited Montmartre, this whole area. So we'll talk a little bit about this whole sort of culture of entertainment and entertainment for the masses and how that interacted with the particular posters that would have been made at this time. Yeah. We'll also talk about outside influences, for instance, the style we call Japonisme. So we'll talk about the influx of Japanese materials that made its way into Europe at the time, and how various artists like Toulouse-Lautrec were very much inspired by the Japanese style, especially these woodcut prints. We'll also talk about we'll also talk about Toulouse-Lautrec with his painting practice and talk about how it interacted with the more sort of comprehensive view of other Art Nouveau examples. We'll look at some of his painting and talk about how it interacted with the post-impressionist style as well. After that, we'll move into the Modernismo of Barcelona, and we'll talk about sites like Park Güell here, that uses kind of sinuous line. We'll talk about the specificity of Modernismo in Spain and talk about how it was really specific to the Catalan culture at that time. And then finally, we'll head to Vienna and look at the Vienna Secession, including their building here, which would have been completely different than anything anybody had ever seen before. And then finally, painters and other artistic kind of practices done by people like Klimt. Now, throughout the course, we'll be discussing Art Nouveau and these other styles across Europe as being a representative of modernism at the time, okay? So the very modern world. But there was also, I have to make sure I make at least over 5 minutes, so just to keep up with everybody else, all the other teachers. So basically with Art Nouveau, it was not only a symbol of modernism, but also a symbol of the fin de siècle, so the end of the century, and the sense of sort of unease that people had with that time period. Made it through. All right. So hope to see you guys in the class and look forward to working with you.
All right, we have one more class, Geologic Evaluation of North America with Nicole Myers.
Structure has a master's degree in geological sciences. Her passion for understanding, her passion for understanding Earth developed from a childhood fascination with volcanoes. In 2007, following years of volcanology research, she chose to focus on teaching others to appreciate Earth because it's in the geology department, the JC Earth and Space Sciences department, and the College of Marine Life and Earth Sciences department. She started her own business called Appreciating Earth to share her enthusiasm for nature through community field explorations and earth science presentations.
You're all here in the same room. So this semester on Friday afternoons, I'm going to be focusing on the geologic evaluation or evolution of North America. And we can see that there's a lot of variety of rocks in North America. Every color on a geologic map represents a different kind of rock, which represents a different formation, as in how did that landform form over the course of time? And our national parks provide us with a really unique opportunity to see land in its relatively unimpaired state, not obstructed by human constructs, so that we can actually see what is the land made out of. We can access those rocks. In many cases, we've had many decades to do scientific studies in these areas and be able to better understand how North America and the United States as a whole has evolved tectonically, geologically, over the course of billions of years. So over the course of 6 weeks, we're going to look at the rocks that exceed 2 billion years old, starting with the Great Lakes area, heading over to the East Coast to better understand the formation of the Appalachians, through the Midwest to the Rockies. The Rockies are so weird. I need like at least an entire 2 hours to explain the weirdness of the Rockies. And then going all the way over to the West Coast so that we can understand that we are actually on new ground. It has, where we stand has been part of the ocean until relatively recently. And when we look at the video's not playing, that's okay. It was just pretty pictures of different national parks. When we look at the United States and this compilation of different rocks of different terrains and how that reflects on the evolution of our continent, this is going to be our virtual geo tour from coast to coast, so we can understand deep time. I think so much better in deep time. Billions of years, I got. Millions of years, perfectly fine. This whole concept of minutes and hours, I have lost control of. So we instead are going to stay in deep time for those 6 sections so we can better understand how the United States has formed and how each and every national park actually provides a window into the geological past of our nation. Because our national parks are going to reveal to us the growth of the North American continent, with the Great Lakes region being the oldest. Like I think of it as the heart of the US geologically. And how when we progress from east to west, we're actually moving towards relatively younger rock. And how that reflects evolving tectonic plate boundaries that we currently are now living on an active tectonic boundary. We call it the San Andreas. It is part of the ongoing formation of North America. But if you lived over on the East Coast, you would be standing on rocks that formed on an active tectonic boundary prior to the time of the dinosaurs. It is no longer active over here on the east, it's now passive. But we can find the volcanoes that represent the activity of the past. We can look at the evidence of old oceans that existed and are no longer there on the East Coast. We can look at the rocks that we find in the Midwest and how they represent mountains that no longer exist, seas that once covered the entirety of what we call the valleys and the plains today. We'll look at the evidence of volcanism coast to coast, from Yellowstone all the way over to the Great Lakes. There used to be a gigantic volcanic rift, like Iceland-style volcanic rift in the Great Lakes area, and nobody even knows about it. We'll look at the evidence of other Yellowstone-like volcanoes within the Colorado Plateau and Basin Range area, which I'm always surprised people haven't heard of. We'll look at the evidence of climate change over the course of billions of years. That even in Death Valley, there's evidence that the ice was so prolific across the surface of the earth that the ice made it to the equator. As in, it's not just an ice age, it's snowball earth at that point in the past. And you would never guess where we find evidence of that in Death Valley. Evidence of ice on the equator. We'll also look at the fossils that we find in each of these parks and how they tell us about the evolution of life, evolution of North America, and generally be able to just explore very pretty pictures of our national parks and how they reveal the history of the United States. Went too far. So join me on Friday, 30 p.m. for 6 weeks. My goal is to actually touch on every single one of the 63 national parks. Each some of them only might get like 1 minute, but I'm gonna get all 63 because they each have something really amazing to tell us about planet Earth and overall evolution of our land. Thank you to all of our instructors. Just a couple questions that occurred this morning. If you are, whether you're attending on Zoom in person or you're taking the recording of the class, all of that information will be sent to you. You don't have to tell us if you're, which way you're attending, you can just, yeah, all that information will be sent to you, and then a couple days after the class, the recording will also be sent to you. Watch that way. We do have a couple Green Music Center announcements from Becky. Oh, slide. Yeah. Oh.
Jacob was gonna be talking about this, so, let me grab the glasses. On February 1st, we are presenting a, American premiere of Joyce DiDonato and Time for Three, performing Emily Knows Me, which is a 24-part song cycle composed by Pulitzer Prize-winning composer Kevin Woods for Grammy Award-winning artists. And it's all based on the poetry of Emily Dickinson. It's gonna be spectacular. It's gonna be semi-stage, kind of similar to what you see there. If you're not familiar with Joyce DiDonato, a very famous opera singer, doing incredible music and beyond. So we're offering 50% off tickets for OLLI members to attend this performance, which is again on February 1st at 7 p.m. in Waddle Hall at the Green Music Center. And there's also a vocal masterclass with Joyce DiDonato where she is going to be teaching 4 up-and-coming singers. And this is an open audience if you'd like to come and experience that. That's free, open to the public, and public parking is required, of course. And if you go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about. Thank you. Yep, time for reading. All right. So many of you have been coming to OLLI for a long time. You may be aware of the various activities that are on campus that are open to the public and free. And I just want to highlight a few things that are coming up in this spring semester, one of which is the University Art Gallery is presenting an exhibition called In Vivo Within the Living, which is curated by Taryn Moeller-Nicole with assistant curators, and will be open, there'll be a public reception that is open to anyone to come to. That'll be opening on February 5th from 4 to 6 p.m. And the show runs through March 14th. There's also going to be a curator talk. Let me tell you a little bit about this. In Vivo reveals the powerful role of art in advancing medicine, science, and human understanding. Connecting science and empathy, this exhibition showcases medical illustrations and prosthetics from the Department of Art as applied to medicine in the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and medical portraits that capture the courageous health journey of a cancer patient. Aligned with national STEAM initiatives, the exhibition brings together fine art, illustration, graphic design, biological science, and the lived human experience through an expansive range of artistic techniques and technologies rarely witnessed in public. The curator talk that's mentioned here on February 6th from 12 to 1 features the curator in person in the art gallery here on campus. And she will be in conversations with doctors from Johns Hopkins who are going to be joining via Zoom to talk more about this exhibition. So I highly encourage you checking that out. Again, free, open to the public. We also have the 43rd Annual Holocaust and Genocide Lecture Series. I'll talk about this very briefly. Again, free and open to the public. Students actually attend these lecture series as a part of either a history or a political science course. And the lecture series has brought Holocaust and genocide survivors, liberators and rescuers, and leading scholars in the field to FSU. Perhaps one of the most powerful aspects of the series is the personal eyewitness accounts of Holocaust survivors, as well as survivors of the Rwandan, Cambodian, and Bosnian genocides. The audience is challenged to face the difficult reality of humankind's brutality and to reflect on the common and varied causes of genocide. So this is a really incredible speaker series. It happens here in Stevenson Hall on Tuesdays, every Tuesday this spring. So more information can be found out about all of these opportunities and more on the OLLI website. There is there's a full page dedicated to different campus activities. And just briefly, I'll point out there's a variety of music department events, one of which is Jazz Forum, which is on Monday. They bring in guest jazz artists to talk with the class, but it's open to the public, it's free. Not every Monday, but again, you can go to the website and find more information about who's coming and when they'll be here. There's also free and discounted student concerts. The discount is for senior citizens, so normally a ticket to some of these performances are $20, but it's $12 for all the OLLI members. And then lastly, the Spotlight on Scholarship series, which is hosted by our Office of Research and Sponsored Programs. Again, you can find that information online. I just wanted to highlight some of these activities. And I'm the engagement director at the Green Music Center, and I'm also doing work with OLLI in this way and just hoping to engage us all more on campus. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everyone. That we are done. And if you would like to register, the computer lab that has registration is going to be out this door. You're going to turn the corner and go down the hall. It's kind of right over here. And thank you so much for coming.